Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisance. All glories to Jagad Guru Shri Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Deva, and all glories to Her Grace Mother Malati Devi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so
All
much.
grace, all glories to all of you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, thank you. So, dear devotees, we thank you all for being here. Today we are very much blessed. We have Her Grace Mother Malati, our own mother. She is the mother of all of us. And she is also the aunt of all of us. It's very interesting in the spiritual life. You can have different relationships simultaneously with an individual. So she is our mother, she is our aunt, she is everything other than enemies and foe. We thank you so much for being here, Mother Malati. I hope your audio, I could hear you, so your audio is okay. So we may put the verse on the screen and you may start speaking.
You didn't give me now.
Hare Krishna, Salika.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right. So Mother, we'll put the verse on the screen and you take over.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, it's 2518. Okay. Somehow, wait a second. Somehow I got the wrong verse down.
Maybe I got it wrong. Let me double check.
I'll just check. I've been traveling a lot and sometimes I get things mixed up. Yeah, 2519. I got it right here. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. I could have.
You're right, Mother. It's 19.
Yes.
I mean, it would have been okay, but okay. So, so this is in the BHAGAVATAM 2519. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Karya Karana Kartritve Dravya Ganam Iyasraya Badnanti Nityada Muktam Mainam Purusam Gunha. Go to the synonyms. So Karya, effect, Karana, cause, Kartritve, inactivities, Dravya, material, Jnana, knowledge, Kriya Ashraya, manifested by such symptoms, Badnanti, conditions, Nityada, eternally, Muktam, transcendental, Mayanam, affected by material energy, Purusham, the living entity, Gunya, material modes. I'm just going to say the verse again. Can you just go back to the beginning of the verse? Yeah. Karya Karana Kritritve Dravya Gyana Kriyashraya Badnanti Nityadamuttam Mainam Purusham Guna. Okay, translation. These three modes of material nature, being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect, and make him responsible for such activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Can you move it up a bit? Because they are between the internal and external potencies, the eternally transcendental living entities are called the marginal potency of the Lord. Actually, the living entities are not meant to be so conditioned by material energy, but due to their being affected by the false sense of lording it over the material energy, they come under the influence of such potency and thus become conditioned by the three modes of material nature. This external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entities eternally existing with him. But the covering is so constant that it appears that the conditioned soul is eternally ignorant. Such is the wonderful action of Maya, our external energy manifested as if materially produced. By the covering power of the material energy, the material scientist cannot look beyond the material causes, but factually, behind the material manifestations, there are Adibhuta, Adiatma, and Adideva actions, which the conditioned soul, in a mode of ignorance, cannot see. The Adibhuta manifestation entails repetitions of birth and death with old age and disease. The Adiatma manifestation conditions the spirit soul, and the Adideva manifestation is a controlling system. These are the material manifestations of cause and effect, and the sense of responsibility of the conditioned actors. They are, after all, manifestations of the conditioned state, and the human being's freedom from such a conditioned state is the highest perfectional attainment. Tamarandasya Janana Sakalaya Chakchum Litam Yena Tasme Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhaskachadeva Satarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Oh, Hare Krishna, or good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And we remove this from the screen. Okay. So in this 5th chapter of the 2nd canto, concentrating on verse 19, still in a little bit of a reminder of some of the wonderful knowledge, spiritual knowledge that is being shared in this chapter, we learn one must be confident about the qualification of his teacher, that one should not approach a layperson for replies to specific spiritual inquiries. It's mentioned in the purport in the third canto 10.2 that such inquiries, when replied to with imaginative answers by the teacher, are a program for wasting time. In other words, asking for transcendental knowledge from the right person and receiving it properly is the regulation of the disciplic succession as is recommended in Bhagavad Gita. So transcendental knowledge regarding the soul and the supersoul includes knowledge of the phenomenal world and the basis of its creation. In the phenomenal world, three things are factually observed by any intelligent man. So just to make sure everybody knows that this phenomenal temporary world, just like ephemeral means lasting a very short time, temporary. So these three items in the phenomenal world, the controller and all continuous action, the past, present, and future. And the direct manager is supposed to know everything about such actions. Then the transcendental knowledge regarding the soul and the super soul includes this knowledge of the temporary world and the basis of its creation. So we observe living beings, the manifest world, and the ultimate control over them. And intelligent persons can see neither the living entity nor the phenomenal world are creations of chance. Sometimes we think, by chance this happened, by chance that happened. And I remember one time in the UK, Prabhupada interrupted, there is no such thing as chance. The symmetry of creation and its regulative actions and reactions suggests the plan of an intelligent brain. And the three principal items, the living being, the phenomenal world, and the controller, are all in such continuous action, the past, the present, and future. And the director, the manager, is supposed to know everything of such actions and reactions. So the direct manifestation of a particular, the direct manufacturer of a particular thing should know how he's learned the art of manufacturing. Where did he get the ingredients? How is it set up? And how the products in the manufacturing process are being turned out. So Brahma, as the firstborn living being, should know everything about creative functions, as should the CEO or the president know everything, how everything's functioning within his company or his country, just like the TP should know what's happening in his project, in his temple. And no one is independent in the matter of any creation, and neither is such creation automatic. The human being is considered to be the superior living being. And amongst human beings, of which there are 400,000 species, that's a mind-boggling consideration into itself. So among the human beings, there are also different varieties. Prabhupada described good, bad, or equal. But not all humans are equal in terms of intelligence, ability, or status. Narada took for granted that none of them has any source of generation besides his father, Brahma. No one becomes God by undergoing a process of transcendental realization. In other words, that is not what transcendental realization is about. Narada was thinking that Brahmaji, as was the Supreme Person, but then he noticed that Lord Brahma was engaged in the process of transcendental realizations. So then some doubts arose in him. So he wanted clarification. The Supreme Lord is supreme, and he has no worshipable superior. So one who worships himself with the idea of becoming God himself is misleading. But an intelligent disciple can detect that the Supreme Lord does not need to worship anyone, including himself, in order to become God. In other words, God is God. He doesn't become God. He doesn't lose his position. His position doesn't become compromised. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Lord. So inquiries were made by Narada Muni, and they're important for everyone concerned. So therefore, he requested Brahma to deem them suitable, that all others who may become in the line of disciplic succession of the Brahma Sampradaya can also know and understand them properly without difficulty. And in return, Brahma was appreciating Narada for his inquiries. The knowledgeable, realized devotees become enthusiastic. They feel enthusiastic whenever they're questioned about the personality of Godhead. This was something experienced in several situations in the time of Srila Prabhupada. One such incident that I was present for, and it was the first visible incident, was when Govinda Dasi in San Francisco in very early 1967, she asked Prabhupada to relate the story of Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna, falling into the ocean and then being recovered by a fisherman. So Prabhupada, for a moment, he was very internal. And then he said, "Thank you very much for asking that question." Because this is, also a sign of a pure devotee, that they are enthusiastic when questioned about the personality of Godhead. So discourses on the transcendental activities of the Lord purify the atmosphere in which such discussions are held. Thus, we regularly have our daily programs. We have sadhu sanghas, as they are called now, where devotees come together and hear and chant and glorify the Supreme Lord. And devotees become enlivened while answering such questions, while others are enlivened by hearing the answers. It's simultaneously purifying for the questioners and for the one who answers the questions. The pure devotees are so eager to broadcast the information to others because they want to see Krishna's glories known to everyone. So devotees feel satisfied when such an opportunity is offered. This, Prabhupada described, this is the basic principle of missionary activities. It's understood from the revealed scriptures that Brahma, actually, it's very interesting throughout these narrations, of which are considerable narrations concerning Brahma. So Prabhupada generally writes Brahmaji. He gives him that respect, Brahmaji. So the Brahmaji of this universe is younger than all the other Brahmins in charge of the many universes beyond our universe. But none of the Brahmas can equal the personality of Godhead. The Lord is he has a different identity in all circumstances. And just like little Krishna on the battlefield, Krishna is Lord Chaitanya in the different incarnations. Anyways, he has different identities in all of circumstances, still remaining the Supreme Lord. And there's no idea of anthropomorphism. So this is, Prabhupada wrote, no idea of anthropomorphism can be applied to the Lord. So I'm just kind of wondering how many devotees actually know the meaning of anthropomorphism. I find it interesting how Prabhupada uses words that we've all heard the words, but I've noticed sometimes when I ask the question, do you know what this means? Actually, they don't know what it means. So in this particular word, just in case you're not sure what it means attributing human characteristics or behavior to a god, an animal, or an object. So that's known as anthropomorphism. So there's no idea of anthropomorphism that can be applied to Lord Krishna. He's always the Lord, and a common living entity can never be equal to him. Brahmaji affirms that he creates the universal variegatedness only after the potential creation by the glaring effulgence of Lord Krishna. Brahmaji also has separately given this statement in the Brahma Samhita, verse 40. I serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental bodily effulgence, known as the Brahma Jyoti, which is unlimited, unfathomable, all pervasive, is the cause of all creation of unlimited numbers of planets with varieties of climates and specific conditions of life. The same statement is in the Bhagavad Gita 14:27, where Lord Krishna is the background of the Brahma Jyoti, this Brahmano hi pratishtaham. In the Nirukuti, or the Nirukuti, the Vedic dictionary, the import of pratishta is mentioned as that which establishes. But the Brahma Jyoti is not independent or self-sufficient. It is Lord Krishna who is ultimately the creator of the Brahma Jyoti, mentioned as Swarotisha, or the effulgence of the transcendental body of the Lord. And this Brahma Jyoti is all-pervading, and all creation is made possible by its potential power. Vedic hymns declare everything that exists is being sustained by this Brahma Jyoti, Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma, and therefore the potential seed of all creation is a Brahma Jyoti, and the same Brahma Jyoti is established by the Lord. In other words, Lord Krishna is the ultimate supreme cause of all creation. Aham sarvasya prabhaha, Bhagavad Gita 10:8. So one should not expect the Lord. This is a very nice example here. One should not expect the Lord to create like a blacksmith with a hammer and other instruments. The Lord creates by his potencies. He has multifarious potencies. His parasya saktir vividava shruyate, explained from the Madhya Lila 1365. And sometimes the activities of the internal potencies are exhibited in the material world. In fact, all the activities in material nature are actually performed by the inconceivable energies of the Lord. But the so-called scientists or the students of material energies are not able to ultimately understand how things are happening. So then they conclude everything is done by nature, but they don't know that behind nature is the all-potent personality of Godhead. Sometimes it's said, like, for example, animals are acting out of instinct. So what is this instinct? It's the super soul. And the super soul is guiding even the animals, just as guiding the human beings. And just as a small seed of a banyan fruit has the potency to create a big banyan tree, the Lord disseminates all variety of seeds by his potential Brahmajyoti, the Swarojisha. And the seeds are made to develop by the watering process of persons. So Brahma cannot create the seeds, but he can manifest the seed into a tree. This illusory potency of the Lord bewilders the less intelligent to accept Brahma or any other person as God. But Brahmaji, however, offers his respectful obeisances unto Vasudeva, Lord Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita, first verse, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadar Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The Supreme Lord is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord in his transcendental body, the ultimate cause of all causes. I worship that primeval Lord Govinda. So nescience is situated behind the personality of Godhead, where she's powerful enough to mislead the living beings. One time asked by devotees, where is Maya? Prabhupada raised his hand. Maya turned his hand. Krishna, showing the palm. Krishna turned his hand. Maya. Krishna, Maya. Behind Krishna is right there like a shadow is Maya. And the primary symptom of bewildered persons is they talk nonsense. It was said that a fool is recognized as soon as they open their mouth. The nonsense talks are not supported by the principles of Vedic literature, and the primary nonsense talk is, it is I, it is mine. The godless civilization is exclusively conducted by these false ideas. And such persons who are without any factual realization of God, except a false God or a false powerful personality, are falsely declaring themselves to be God. Or if they don't say I'm God, they act as if they are the controllers. And they mislead persons who are already bewildered by the deluding energy. So those who are before the Lord and who surrender to him cannot be influenced by the deluding energy. And therefore, such persons' surrendered souls are free from the conception of it is I, it is mine. They don't accept a false God or pose themselves as equal to the Supreme Lord, neither grossly or subtly. The living entity is an offshoot of the internal potency with freedom to remain either in the material world or in the spiritual world. In the material world, the living entity is enticed by deluding nescience. But in the spiritual world, he is in his normal condition of spiritual existence without any delusion. In other words, the natural life. Spiritual world is the natural life of the living soul. But in all circumstances, neither in the material ingredients nor in the spiritual parts and parcels, neither the spiritual parts and parcels are independent of the personality of Godhead. So all things, whether products of the external, internal, or marginal potencies, all and every one are displays of the Lord's effulgence, just as light, heat, and smoke are all displays of fire. But none of them are separate from the fire, all combined together to become the fire, are called fire. So similarly, all the phenomenal manifestations, as well as the effulgence of Vasudeva, are his impersonal features distinct from his actual, eternal, blissful, fully knowledgeable form. Brahma starts each day by meditating on the Supreme Lord. He prays that he may engage in the Lord's service in the creation of the material world, and that I may not be materially affected by my works, for thus I may be able to give up the false prestige of being the creator. This was Brahma's mood declared in the Bhagavatam, the third canto, 9th chapter. So Brahma acknowledges God's supremacy, and he doesn't want to become illusioned into thinking that he is independently powerful. He wants to remember the original cause of everything is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just like the gardener, he doesn't create the seeds, but he plants the seeds, he waters them to make them grow. Brahma does not create life, the soul, but he receives power from the Supreme Lord to place certain souls into different types of bodies. According to the Vedanta Sutra, the Supreme Lord is the author of all revealed scriptures, and they're intended only for knowing him. That is the intention of all Vedanta. Vedanta meaning knowledge. The Vedas are made to revive the forgotten consciousness of the conditioned souls. And any literature not meant for God consciousness is at once rejected by the Narayana Para devotees of the Lord. The deluding books of knowledge, meaning without Narayan, without Krishna as our aim, Prabhupada described as a playground for the crows who are interested in the rejected refuse of the world. Just like in New Vrindavan, we have places like the dumpster where full of rejected refuse, and we have the beautiful lake with lotuses. So around the dumpster, there are many crows and other creatures which just love garbage. But around the lotus pond, you will see the swans and sometimes the peacocks. A difference. Prabhupada said birds of a feather flock together. So the creatures that are attracted to the garbage of the material world, they will go where that garbage is found. And the creatures which are attracted to the sublime will hanker after those places where you find the lotus and where you find knowledge of the Supreme Lord. So any book of knowledge, whether it's science or art, must lead to the knowledge of Narayan. Otherwise, it's rejected as a playground for the crows. And that is the way of advancement of pure knowledge. So demigods are recommended, worshiping demigods. It's a secondary recommendation and relationship to Narayan, Krishna, because the demigods are assisting hands in the management of the universal affairs. Just as the officers of a kingdom are respected due to their relationship to the king, the demigods are worshipped due to their relationship to the Lord. And many times, most of the times, people are worshiping demigods for some type of material compensation. Lord Shiva is one of the great demigods. In fact, he is one of the greatest devotees of Krishna. Yet people are not going to him, my dear Shiva, please help me become a great devotee. They're, my dear Shiva, please, can you give me this? Please, can you give me that? Please, can you give me this? So they actually, Shiva is so kind, also known as Ashutosh, very merciful. He will grant them their request, but they're getting shortchanged because he can assist them in their progressive march to God realization, but they're shortcutting and becoming more bewildered. We see this a lot, actually. Even coming to Krishna, you can ask for any material thing. You can do that, and you might get it, but then you don't get love of Godhead. Just like Prabhupada would give that example of the washer lady walking along the bank of the Yamuna. So she has this great big bundle on her head of dirty clothes, and she drops it. Oh, what are we going to do? Because she needs help getting it up, and she's just there alone. And then comes this little beautiful boy. Oh, Ma, what do you want? Oh, can you help me put that bundle on my head? He does it. And she goes on. But that little boy was Krishna, and she could have said, oh, my dear Lord, please give me your devotional service. But she asked for the bundle of laundry back on her head so that she could go on struggling into material existence. The duration of life with proportionate quantities of bliss and knowledge may be increased from one planet to the other. We can increase the duration of life to thousands and hundreds of thousands of years in different planets, but eternal life is nowhere to be found in the material realm. Material realm is eternal, but it's not eternally blissful and full of knowledge. Therefore, the progressive journey from one planet to another should culminate in reaching the supreme planet of the Lord, Maddam, the Supreme Lord's planet, where life is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. So all different kinds of sacrifice are performed just to satisfy Lord Krishna Narayan with a view to reach him. And the best sacrifice is recommended in this age is Sankirtan Yagya, in this age of Kali, Sankirtan Yagya, the mainstay of devotional service for the pure devotees, for all devotees. Oneness with the impersonal Brahmajyoti, it's not the ultimate liberation. When a devotee speaks of oneness, it means in accord with the Lord. I will be one with Krishna by following his orders. I don't become Krishna. I'm in step with Krishna. Superior to this oneness in the impersonal Brahmajyoti is that sublime association of the personality of Godhead. And the conclusion is that personality of God is the ultimate destination for all kinds of yoga systems, as well as all kinds of liberation. In the spiritual sky of Brahmajyoti, there is no change of various kalpas or millenniums. There's no creative and there are no creative activities in the Vaikuntha worlds, where the influence of time is conspicuous by its absence. There's a beautiful description, and I think it's in the 12th canto. So we have these beautiful high-level planetary systems where people live a very, very long time. So long you cannot count. And the only indication of time is that the garlands begin to wilt. We can't quite comprehend that. The rays of the transcendental body of the Lord aren't deterred by the influence of the material energy. In the material world, the initial creator is the Lord himself, and it's he who brings about the creation of Brahma, who becomes the subsequent creator, empowered by the Lord. So devotees develop a spiritual identity in their spontaneous service attitude, which is enhanced up to the point of transcendental loving service, reciprocated between the lover and the beloved, the Lord and the devotee. So anyone who takes pride in doing responsible work but does not give credit to the Supreme Lord is certainly falsely proud and cannot execute anything nicely. Brahma and those in his disciplic succession who follow his footsteps are always successful in discharging loving transcendental service to the Supreme Lord, never claiming credit for themselves. It's like Srila Prabhupada, when asked, are congratulated, oh, you've done this, you've done that. Prabhupada would reply, if I have done anything, it is that I have remained faithful to the instructions of my spiritual master. And in the same way, Lord Brahma has remained faithful to the instructions given to him by the Supreme Lord. So the two identities of the soul, the super soul and the individual soul, are in every living entity. The super soul is the Supreme Lord, but the individual soul is the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. But in the material situation, the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord becomes covered by the external energy of the Lord, which is also under the Lord's control. So no one can factually create anything without the sanction of the Lord. That was Lord Brahma's realization, and therefore he prayed to the Lord not to become bewildered. Although we do know there was a beautiful pastime of Brahma Vimohan, becoming bewildered by the Lord. Anyway, this ability is awarded by the Lord according to one's willingness to render service to the Lord. So one must be voluntarily willing to render service unto the Lord, and then the Lord empowers the doer, although we're never the doer, in proportion to his surrender unto the Lord's lotus feet. In the Vedic writings, such as the Katha Upanishad, the Lord is described as Sarva Bhutta Antaratma, or the personality of Godhead, who resides in everyone's body and who directs everything for one who is a soul surrendered unto him. So those who are not surrendered souls are put under the care of the material nature. This Brahman Sarvabhutani Yantarudani Mayaya, Gita 18:16. And therefore they're allowed to do things on their own. Whatever you want, you can do it by the mercy of the Lord. But that includes suffering the consequences of misaligned actions. The subtle presence of the Lord is felt by an intelligent person who can study the psychic effects of thinking, feeling, and willing, and even more so to act accordingly. So living entities who are entangled in the material world are neither masters nor controllers. Rather, we are always controlled by such energy. So we can understand, and from the mode of goodness, there's no contemplation, no action, only delusion, as explained in 14:13 Gita. And in 14:12, the mode of passion, there is action and then contemplation. And then in 14:11, the mode of goodness, there's contemplation and then action. And transcendence is characterized by contemplation and action harmonized by devotion. This is 10:10. Transcendence characterized by contemplation and action harmonized by devotion. So this Atma Darsanam, self-realization, that is Gyan, real knowledge. Otherwise, this lower Gyan, our knowledge, how to eat, how to sleep, how to perform sex life, how to defend. This knowledge is there even in the mosquito or small ant, what to speak of the higher grade living entities. That is Gyan, but it is not ni Shrayasya, Shreya and Preya. There are these two things. So Preya means to fulfill immediate necessities of life. And Shreya means the knowledge of the goal of life. Niheshayashaya means the ultimate benefit. And that education is currently lacking in the material world. As Gyan, especially in the present, means technical knowledge only. Seems like everybody I speak to, if their students are working, like, okay, what are you studying? Studying technology, computer technology. What are you doing? Oh, I'm in technology. It's the activity of the material world, but it's temporary knowledge. Whereas Krishna is everywhere. Adantarashta paramano chayantarastam govindamari purusam tamaham bhajami. Brahma Samhita 35. He is everywhere. So how can he ever be impersonal? Therefore, Gyan, which considers impersonality without varieties, is not knowledge. Prabhupada described, what is the material world? 3 words: forgetfulness of Krishna. So when a person knows the goal of life, but is addicted to the fruits of activities, he's acting in karma yoga. And when he knows the goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, he is acting in jnana yoga. And when he knows the goal and seeks Krishna completely in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, then one is acting in bhakti yoga or buddhi yoga, which is the complete yoga. Krishna explains in Gita 10:10, Tesham satatayitanam vasatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yedamamupayantate. Those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So everyone is actually a servant, not a friend or enemy, and everyone is working under different directions from the Lord, who directs each living entity according to his mentality. So a person may have a bona fide spiritual master, he may be attached to a spiritual organization, but still, if he's not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna from within gives him instructions. So ultimately he can come to him without difficulty. The qualification is a person must always engage himself in Krishna consciousness with love and devotion. Offer all varieties of service. Prabhupada said one should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be done with love. In a purport from Bhagavatam 7.5.12, very beautiful. Everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. Everyone should praise another's service to the Lord and not be proud of their own service. This is the way of Vaishnava thinking. There may be rivalries and apparent competition between servants in performing service. But in the Vaikuntha planets, the service of another servant is appreciated. It's not condemned. This is Vaikuntha competition. There's no question of enmity between servants. Everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability, and everyone should appreciate the service of others. Such are the activities of Vaikuntha. Since everyone is a servant, everyone is on the same platform and is allowed to serve the Lord according to his ability. So in 15:15 Gita, Sarvasya Cham Hirdi Sangisto Sannivisto Matasmatir Gahanam Apohanam Cha. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart, giving dictation according to the attitude or the surrender of the devotee. However, the Lord gives dictation to the non-devotees and devotees. Their dictation is different. Non-devotees challenge the authority of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the Lord dictates in such a way that the non-devotee forgets the Lord's service, life after life, and they're punished by the laws of nature. But when a devotee sincerely wants to render service to the Lord, then the Lord dictates in a different way. We can say, like nowadays, it's a little theme, radical personalism. We can say the Lord is radically personal, according to your desire, according to your activity, according to your inclination. The Lord will dictate from within. So that's a few thoughts. And I wanted to conclude with a very wonderful instruction from His Divine Grace. Dancing is very good. The more you dance, the more you become light, means the burden of material contamination becomes reduced. Dancing is so nice. Even if you don't feel ecstasy, if you dance by force, that will also help us. By dancing, we shall develop our dormant Krishna consciousness, love for Krishna. This is a nice process. Then you will merge into the ocean of love for Krishna. This is the highest stage of ecstasy for Krishna consciousness, always chanting Krishna's name, dancing in ecstasy, and to be merged in the ocean of love for Krishna. These are the perfection. And in addition, Prabhupada called Krishna consciousness as a disease. But what kind of disease is that? And he explained, speaking in Fiji in 76, we are giving you prasadam by eating. Eating. You will one day become Krishna conscious simply by eating Krishna prasadam, because you are so dull, you cannot understand the philosophy. You know the belly like animals, so therefore we are giving you full facility. All right, fill up your belly and you'll be infected. As you take foodstuff from an affected area, you become affected with some disease. So this is Krishna infection, prasadam. You take it, and one day you'll be diseased with Krishna consciousness. A similar incident in Pittsburgh, the audience was just restless. They wouldn't listen. They weren't even interested in kirtan. So Prabhupada instructed, just distribute prasadam. Although even that's kind of difficult nowadays with people with all their peculiar diets. But just distribute prasadam. One time, Urlama brought her father to meet Srila Prabhupada. And every time he'd come, he came quite often. He'd often bring a big basket of fruit, and Prabhupada would always personally hand him some prasadam. So one time he was asking Srila Prabhupada, how is it you're always giving this food? And Prabhupada said, this is Krishna prasadam. And if you take this prasadam, you become infected with Krishna. So just some thoughts. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother Malati, for such a beautiful SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM discourse. And what's even more beautiful is the capping of the class. Prabhupada talking about the importance of dancing and also honoring prasadam.
Oh, I just noticed it said my audio was unclear. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, well, when that happens, maybe you should because I'm not reading, I'm thinking like in my mind, say something, and I don't know what I can do about it, but I can try to do something about it.
Well, I think it's okay for now. I think it is.
Now that it's over.
Luckily we have few devotees in West Africa who have made it this part of their daily sadhana, that every single day they go out to distribute Krishna prasadam.
Beautiful sadhana, and that's also compassion.
Yes.
Yes.
So we pray to Guru and Krishna that they will be blessed so that they can continue doing this service. Mother, I have a question. Dear devotees, if anyone has question, comment, you may raise up your hand and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. But Mother, the question I have is, you were telling a story which dates as far back as 67.
Yeah, that was in Fiji.
In Fiji, yes. This devotee was asking Sri Prabhupada pastime about Lord Chaitanya. But my
No, that one, sorry. That's, no. The Lord Chaitanya pastime was 67 in San Francisco.
okay, okay, yeah. So 67 in San Francisco. That's what
Yeah.
I asked about. Krishna consciousness at that time was very, very infant.
Absolutely.
And I am wondering, even in this age, as we speak now, there are so many of us who do not even know much about these transcendental pastimes. So my question, what was the motivational factor for these early devotees to have this understanding to ask these intelligent questions to Srila Prabhupada, whereby Srila Prabhupada was even saying, thank you for asking me this question. Where was motivation coming from? Hare Krishna.
I mean, just like seeing his initial response, which was, some internal ecstasy was taking place. And then he said, thank you very much for asking this question. We could understand how important it was to understand these pastimes. They weren't simply some stories. Just like when I speak about Srila Prabhupada, I'm not trying to entertain anybody with cute little stories about Prabhupada. I'm praying that somehow by hearing about Srila Prabhupada, one will be feeling more connected to his divine grace. I had such an opportunity this past weekend in Canada, was way up somewhere outside of Montreal, but it was a beautiful space. It was a Vaishnav retreat put on by the Ottawa devotees. And my topic, there were several speakers, Mahatma, Bhakti Raghava Maharaj, another wonderful Maharaj from Mauritius, I can't think of his name. Anyways, we were all speaking each day, but my topic was Srila Prabhupada. And I was so happy afterwards when many devotees came up and expressed how they felt closer to Prabhupada after hearing from me. And it's not me they're hearing from, it's really Srila Prabhupada presenting himself. So that is the aim. And in the same way, when the spiritual master is pleased, the devotee naturally feels pleased, just like when the Supreme Lord is pleased. When the spiritual master sees the devotee is pleased, he's also pleased. So then that is further impetus. So we can see that the spiritual master is pleased to speak about Krishna. And if our desire is to please the spiritual master, then we want to hear more and more about Krishna from the spiritual master. So that gave him impetus. And there were some souls, some devotees who were naturally eager to hear about Krishna or his expansion, such as Lord Chaitanya, probably coming from a previous birth. It was so close to the surface that when that surface was touched by hearing by Srila Prabhupada, immediately they wanted to know more. They didn't have to go through, wait a minute, can I really believe this? They immediately accepted, So in this case, when Govinda Dasi asked to hear about that past time, as mentioned, Prabhupada was into like a moment of internal ecstasy, and then he thanked her. And then he narrated that, story, how Krishna Lord Chaitanya fell into the ocean. He became entangled in a net of a fisherman. And in the meantime, two things were going on. The devotees, where is Lord Chaitanya? He had run away, he broke away from him, so they didn't know where he was. In the meantime, fisherman, he's feeling something's in his net and it's quite heavy. And he's thinking, oh, it must be a very big fish. And he's like, wow, this is good. But he pulls him up. He goes, what is this? Because the Lord was in a heightened state of ecstasy. His limbs had kind of retracted. And from being in the water, he was kind of a weird whitish color. What is this? And he wasn't moving even. And then he starts freaking out. He starts thinking this, he's pulling in the Lord. And then from the net, the Lord is in the net. He's filling the Lord's body, and he's freaking out because he doesn't know what this is, and he's thinking it's a ghost. He can't understand what's going on. He is getting symptoms of transcendental ecstasy for touching the Lord's body, for touching the net that's touching the Lord's body. Just like when you pull the Roth cart that's holding the Lord, you actually are getting, if you're fortunate enough, some direct connection with the Lord, and you may feel symptoms of ecstasy. But this foolish fisherman, he didn't understand that. So he's thinking, oh my God, there's a ghost and I'm going crazy. And so, what's going to happen to my family? What will happen? Such an unfortunate, he was simultaneously fortunate and unfortunate. And, that's what happened when somebody is not in the right state of consciousness, is not prepared to receive the direct mercy of the Lord. They get it, but they're not ready for it. It's squandered, it's wasted. Like you give a kid $100 bill, oh, and there's a big wind, he lets go and he goes, oh, there's $100 flying away in the wind. Foolish, right?
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you. There is no reason for anybody not to understand the feeling of these devotees who heard you speak about Srila Prabhupada, because it's so nice hearing about Prabhupada, and especially hearing from first-hand witnesses of Srila Prabhupada. So
I would also like to comment here that for those persons who think we cannot give Krishna as he is and speak of these beautiful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya or even Lord Krishna, because they're thinking, oh, these people, they won't understand. Look what Prabhupada is giving us. If you go back and listen to tapes from '66 where he's speaking, this is pre-ISKCON, and he's at Dr. Mishra's mansion, a yoga facility. So all these people are impersonalists. And Prabhupada's speaking from Bhagavad, from the Chaitanya Chaitamrita, high level speaking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to give them the truth. And of course, we don't have to hide it. We may have to speak in such a way that they can understand. Naturally, that's part of the perfection of preaching. But you don't omit it. You don't cover it up. You don't ignore it. Otherwise, how are they ever going to get it?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that particular thing, because even from the very, very early days, Srila Prabhupada was speaking like he was speaking in 77.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Thank you so much, Mother. Dr.
Yeah,
Hassan, please, you be on mute.
How do you hold Dr. Hassan?
Hare Krishna. Mother, please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
humble respect obeisances. All glory to Guru Dev, all glory to Prabhupada, and all glories to the assembly devotees. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. I have one question and one request. First, I will go with the request. On 22nd of July, I was so fortunate to see you in person in Gitanagri in the Ratha Yatra.
Oh, that was a wonderful Rath Yatra, wasn't it?
Yes. I was so blessed to touch your feet, and I was finding the opportunity to come closer to you to ask for your blessings and prayers for me to develop more in my Krishna consciousness, but I didn't have the chance. So seeing you here today is a very big opportunity for me. So I want to ask you to pray for me to be developed more in my Krishna consciousness. And my question is, Your Grace, please, can you put the paper back?
Okay.
Yes, please. Yes, my question will start from. Yes, it's from. But due to their being affected by the four senses of lording in over the material energy, they come under the influence of such potency and thus become conditioned by the three modes of material nature. This external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entity, external existing him. But the covering is so constant that it appears that the conditioned soul is external ignorant. So my question is, this influence and this affection, if it is from this energy is from KRSNA, how does it affect us? And how did we come in? If this energy is affecting us, and it says that it appears that constantly, it appears that the condition is constantly ignorance. So how can we get up from this, and how does it beginning to affect us? This is my question.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
So it's explained how the external energy covers the conditioned soul. So how does that happen? It's when the conditioned soul accepts the body as himself, or thinks that I am the controller. I'm in charge of whatever, as opposed to thinking I'm the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this ignorance appears to be eternal. The ignorance is actually, I mean, the modes of material nature, they're always there. The living entity does not have to be always under the influence of the material energy. That's a choice we make. I was explaining, I can find my note here. You know, we make this decision, and by whatever decision we make, whether it's to serve Krishna, I mean, most of us were kind of like this, Krishna, I want you. And then we see something, oh, I want that too. Oh, Krishna, Maya, Krishna, Maya. That's why Prabhupada said, we're answered. When the question is, where is Maya? He goes, Krishna, Maya. It's right there behind Krishna. And as long as we're not fully fixed upon the Krishna aspect, we're going to be constantly churning Krishna Maya, Krishna Maya. I've given this example before that I was in Rajasthan, Jaipur. And Jaipur is the home of Radha Govinda. Beautiful, beautiful Lord Govinda. And it's such a magical place. The whole town is under the influence of Govinda. And at Mangalarti, people just running to get into that temple to get that first darshan, are running to when it's going to be the Shringar darshan. So one day I was also running to be there. I wanted to be early, and I got in front of, like a front place. And right next to me, a lady came with a little baby. It's a young woman with a little baby. So she's waiting, like everybody else is waiting for the curtains to open. But she kept looking at the curtain, looking at her baby. And then the curtains open and everybody's Govinda, Govinda. And she was looking, but she didn't let go of her baby, but Govinda, and then she's looking at the baby, and then she's looking at Govinda. She couldn't make up her mind who was to look at, you know. And I love that because it was Krishna showing me the real condition of the, you know, what is the conditioned soul? Krishna, Maya. Krishna, you know, the baby is not Maya, but where is your attention going to be reposed? And when we repose our attention completely on Krishna, then that is our good fortune. That is our eternal nature. That is our natural nature. But when we can't make up our mind, you know, we're having like spiritual schizophrenia. Krishna, Maya, Krishna, Maya. Oh, just a little Maya. I need a little Maya to get through the day. But then we're not going to have Krishna full time. It's up to us. It's not that as long as we're in the conditioned state, it seems it's eternal. But as soon as we step out into the spiritual state, that's also eternal. But that eternality is without condition. It's always full of bliss and knowledge, eternally full of bliss and knowledge, where the conditioned state is eternally full of miseries and suffering. And it's our choice. Krishna is there. He awards a living entity according to the surrender. It's not that he's playing favorite with one or the other. It's just like you may, I don't know if you're married or not, or if you have children, but let's say you have children. Well, there's so many children in the world, but naturally you're a little partial to your own children and they reciprocate with you. So Krishna is partial to his devotees because they reciprocate with him. And the non-devotees aren't interested. So why should he bother? He tries, he gives every impetus, he gives every opportunity, but they just go on their little way because, you know, they're more interested in their own desires than serving the desire of Krishna. So as soon as we become fully convinced of the supremacy of Krishna and our relation with him as a eternal servant, you know, being a servant of Krishna is the perfection of servitorship. Otherwise, being a servant, we're a servant anyway of our senses ultimately. People think, I don't want to be a servant. But the perfection of servitorship is to become a servant of Krishna. And that servitorship will liberate us from repeated birth and death and allow us a perfect loving relationship with Krishna. It's up to each one of us to make that choice. And as we're on the path to making that choice, we're going to be like Krishna Maya, Krishna Maya. You're going to get a mental whiplash.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Father.
Thank you so much. That this is amazing answer. Thank you so much, and I'm so satisfied with the answer. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
I was just thinking how, as little children, peekaboo is so sweet to play, you know. And in our spiritual progress, as babyish as we are, this peekaboo of Krishna Maya is, I hope that at some point it ends, but it's, it seems like an eternal lila going on. We look at Krishna for a minute, we look at Maya for a minute, instead of looking at Krishna all the time. His Holiness Guru Govinda Maharaj came to Ghana some time ago in the early 90s. And he said the same thing. He says, our problem is that we look at Krishna, we look at Maya, but Mother, well, let me ask this way. How do we stop looking at the attractions that Maya presents to us and just concentrate on Krishna? Because we know that once we accept the offerings that Maya is giving us, we're going to attempt to lord it over material nature, which causes our problems. But how do we avoid looking at these beautiful and attractive things that Maya keeps presenting to us?
Well, you can't really avoid looking at it, but what you can avoid is looking at it with intentions of enjoyment.
Yeah.
Like in one instant, Prabhupada was holding a rose. I don't have time to tell the whole story, but he was holding a rose and goes, just like this rose. When a devotee sees the rose, he's thinking, oh, let me take, sorry, when a non-devotee sees the rose, he's thinking, oh, let me take this rose and offer it to my girlfriend and we can enjoy together. But when a devotee sees the rose, he's thinking, let me take this rose and offer it to Krishna. You can't avoid looking, but you can avoid how you perceive.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow, simple but effective. Thank you.
So I have to
You have to leave. Thank you.
to take your leave.
So, Mother, we can't thank you enough because it's an honor to have your association and blessings and to hear from you directly, as we do at least once in a month. And we truly and honestly appreciate your association and blessings to us. And at this point, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute. And we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to Grace Mother Malati. Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Yasa Kepa Sindhu Divasa, Pajitana Pradipina Review Namo, Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Bye.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Yeah.
Yeah.